Well, I was about to say good morning, but good afternoon, wherever you are. Maybe morning if you're on the other side of the world, but it doesn't matter. It is Wednesday, the best day of the week. I contend, hump day. Doesn't matter how we started the week. Here we are. We're at the middle of it, working to get over the hump. I know we usually connect a little bit earlier, but you know how things go sometimes. And I didn't want the day to pass without us having a chance to chat. So here we are. It's not 10 a.m., it's midday, but we get a chance to hang out nonetheless. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time. Let's shoot the breeze, chew over some fat, as they would say. Share some ideas. Feel free to chime in. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions. And feel free, of course, to invite your friends and to share the thoughts that we are throwing around here today. I think in the past, I have shared some ideas on this business of perfection. I'm not sure I've gone in any depth with the discussion, but I'm sure I've mentioned it. Um, but I want to do that. I want to touch on this business of perfection this morning because, I describe myself as a reformed perfectionist. And that's because, once upon a time, every single thing I did um, was with the idea of absolute perfectionism, right? I just expected that I would not just excel, but dominate, be just totally amazing at it. And um, I think we would all agree that that's a little bit of it's a stretch. It's a really ambitious proposition, right? To be totally dominant and to be totally dominating in every single thing that you do. No, the truth though is that there's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with having high expectations. I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting the absolute best for ourselves, for our family, for our businesses. We all want that, right? We all want the best things and the best for ourselves and for those we care about. The challenge, I think, comes when those desires are rooted in the idea of perfectionism, right? When those ideas are rooted in this idea of, winning our boss mentality. If you have watched sports, you'll hear certain teams start off the season going in as championship or bust. If we haven't won the championship, then the season's a total failure. And there's a part of me that understand that as an athlete, of course, why would you compete if you don't want to win? Um, the danger with that kind of thinking for all of us, whether you're a sports team or you're a business or as an individual, is that there's so much more between where you are and this ultimate goal of winning, right? And when we tend to run into a whole world of problems when the goal is only about perfectionism and being perfect, right? Perfection is kind of based on this external standard that, quite frankly, is virtually impossible to achieve. We're talking about sports, and certainly, if you think of gymnastics and figure skating and so on, those sports where you're judged. Um, there are times when the athlete will get a perfect 10, right? Will create this perfect score. What I know is that yes, there are times in our lives when we will perform with such level of excellence and proficiency that people will judge that performance as perfect. But I think because we're human beings, we are by nature imperfect. We're imperfect beings. And so, yeah, trying to be perfect is going to be a challenge. But here's what you can do: you can be excellent, you can make progress, right? Excellence is about striving to be the absolute best you can be. Can you do that? Can you, at any given moment, strive to be your absolute best? You can at every single turn, in any given moment. You can absolutely do your very, very best. It may not be enough. It may not be to win. It may not be enough to be the best of everybody else. But in that moment, you're the best that you can be. You can always do that, right? And that should be the goal, to be your absolute best. Being perfect, though, is another story, right? And so my challenge, my encouragement to you is that perfection should never be the goal, because more often than not, the outcome is always going to be failure. Because perfectionism, it doesn't matter what you do, man. You could move a mountain. You could move a mountain, and perfectionism will go, yeah, the mountain could have been taller, or you didn't move the mountain far enough. That kind of response. Perfectionism is going. It says, you know what, man, I only have one shot at this thing, and if I don't get, if I get rejected, it means that I suck. It means that I'm not good enough, and that's not true either. I think we all know that, right? Perfectionism, as I said, is this winning or bust kind of mentality. It's all or nothing. And if I can't get everything I want, then what is the point? And again, it's how I used to think once upon a time, and it's foolish thinking, right? Perfectionism is saying, nothing is ever good enough, and so you can, if you live a life striving to be perfect, you're going to live a rather miserable, unfulfilling life, because you're not going to be perfect, right? Perfectionism, it kind of slows you down. You're trying to achieve perfectionism. Yes, no, don't get me wrong. Again, from personal experience, I know how motivating that can be, right? When you are striving for perfectionism, it really inspires you, motivates you to work as hard as you can possibly work. But it requires so much extra energy and so much focus and time. You become hyper focused on the attention to the details, that it really saps your energy. It really wears you down. So it slows you down. Perfectionism. It really prevents any new ideas as well. It hinders new ideas and new ways of doing things, because you are so focused on being flawless. And so when you become so hyper focused on being perfect, then you lose sight of any new ways that you could do things, which could actually be so much better. So much more efficient, right? Because you feel safe in this little bubble of perfectionism that you have created, which is really a false sense of security, right? And then, it leads to self-criticism. It leads to you beating yourself up all the time. And I talk about that, and I know I've shared these ideas with you before, that we need to learn to be kinder and gentler with ourselves. Again, because we are not perfect human beings, every now and again, we're going to slip up, right? Oftentimes, when you set out to achieve a new goal, there's a steep learning curve. There is a learning curve, and you're not going to get it all at once, right? There are skills that you need to develop, and it takes time to develop those skills. Now, if you have this perfectionism mindset, then every little fault now becomes this huge criticism, which just works to demotivate you even more, right? And it makes the motivation inconsistent. In one moment, you're on top of the world because you did well. And the next moment, you slipped up a little bit, and so you beat yourself up. It's self-defeating, completely self-defeating. What I know is that there is always a gap. There's always a gap between our ambition, and we should, and I encourage you to be ambitious, crazy ambitious, right? But there's a gap. There's a gap between that ambition and your ability. right? They say there's a thin line between love and hate. There's a thin line between striving for excellence and achieving perfectionism as well, right? And if you're not careful, if perfectionism becomes your watchword, then you're gonna get sucked into that sinkhole and and disappear, because you'll live a frustrated life always because you're not perfect, right? So excellence, or trying to make progress, which should be our watchword there, working to make progress. Progress and not perfection is the way you bridge that gap between your ambition and your abilities, right? Progress, not trying to cross this gap in one giant leap, but doing so step by step, just making steady progress, almost like the tortoise and the hare kind of story, right? You're not trying to get there overnight, man. You're just trying to take it one step at a time. And so when you're making progress, progress is saying, okay, man, you know what? I will take as many shots as I need to take, because I know I'm going to learn from all of my efforts. Every attempt that I make, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get wiser. I'm going to become better, right? So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to take my step, take my time, and I'm going to evolve over time, step by step. And so, yes, I will fail, and you accept that. But guess what? I'm not a failure. The event was a failure. That's not a characteristic of mine, being a failure. I recognize that I am going to fall short every now and then, but hey, it's part of the journey, man. Part of the journey. And so you have the mindset that, you know what, it's better to get something done rather than to have it perfect, right? And I talk about this particular point fairly often, because if you look in the world of commerce, you'll see so many examples of companies. We're talking about huge multinational conglomerates who have adopted this idea that, progress rather than perfection, getting something done rather than getting it perfectly done is better. So you think of, I don't necessarily call a name of a company, but a software company that will send out a new software, a new operating system, whatever it is, right? And then, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months later, they send out patches. They're like, oh, we know that our software has this glitch. Here's a patch that will fix it. I am not a betting man, but I'm willing to bet that they knew of these challenges before it was released. But they go, you know what, we're not going to wait on perfection. We're going to send it out, and we'll try and figure out how we fix this defect in the meantime. And people will give us their feedback and tell us that they're having these issues, but they send out a patch, right? You hear car companies all the time having recalls. Why? Because their product was imperfect. And so they sell it anyway. In my opinion, and I haven't done any research and I haven't asked the car companies if this is the case, in my opinion, they knew of this defect. And they sold the car, made millions and millions of dollars, and then they go, oh yeah, it has that little problem, send it back, we'll take care of it for you, right? So done, my friends, is better than perfect, right? Because you're getting that real world feedback that helps you to grow, helps you to improve. So I think we can really learn from these huge companies out there, right? Right, Rita, right, Sandra, Leon, Felicia, Marvin, absolutely. So share 3 quick ideas with you. Go to my banners here. And so when you're focusing on progress, right, that is the key. Focusing on progress instead of perfection really makes life easier, man. It makes the journey more enjoyable as you work to achieve your goals. Look, there's not many things that feel so much better than achieving your goals, right? But you know what I've learned over the years as I have grown older and hopefully wiser as well is that the journey to the goal is something that should be enjoyed as well. Should you work hard? Should you be focused? Should you be disciplined, etc., etc.? Absolutely. But life becomes way more meaningful when you figure a way to do all that you need to do, and enjoy the process. And when you are so honed in on being flawless and putting this extra pressure, this tremendous pressure on yourself, yeah, it's difficult to enjoy the journey, right? So remember that when you are really focusing on progress, making the step-by-step improvement, it really motivates you to keep going, right? So 3 ideas. One is that it motivates you to keep going, to keep on pushing, right? It's if you just think about working towards a particular goal and you haven't reached there yet. Maybe you're even really far from achieving that goal. But when you take a minute to just look back at where you're coming from, you realize, oh my word, look at the tremendous progress I've made. Look how much I've learned. Look how much I've grown. Right? That's something to be proud of, as opposed to beating yourself up for the simple fact that you haven't quite hit the goal yet, right? When you look back at the growth and the progress you have made, that motivates you to keep going, and it reinforces the belief that you have the ability to make it happen. And okay, there may be some changes that you need to make to sustain the effort, but you're motivated to do so, right? So that's number one. Number two is that it encourages a learning mindset. I'm gonna pull up my thing, right? It really, when you're focusing on progress, you're encouraged to develop a learning mindset, right? You, again, whatever it is that you're doing, you know, when you fail to hit the mark, instead of seeing it as a failure, when you make a mistake, instead of seeing it as, oh, I'm no good, you're going, okay, what's the lesson here? You know, they talk about failing forward. What's the lesson here? What can I learn and to make sure that I continue more intelligently, right? And so you develop this learning mindset as opposed to seeing every misstep as a failure, and worse yet, seeing yourself as a failure. And then number three is that it gives you a reason to celebrate, man. We have to learn to, like I said earlier, enjoy the journey. And when you are on your journey and you're able to look back at the tremendous growth, you have reason to be happy. You have reason to celebrate. You have reasons, quite frankly, to be grateful. Okay, so you're not there yet. You're not there yet. But my God, look how far you have come. That's something to celebrate. That's something to be thankful for. That's something to be appreciative of, right? When you are in this perfectionist mindset, though, nothing is good enough. It doesn't matter how far you have come, you can't find the wherewithal within you to be grateful for the progress. And that only demotivates you. It makes the journey 10 times harder than it needs to be. Look, the journey is hard enough. Don't make it harder on yourself. Choose to be excellent, i.e., being your best. Choose progress, taking these tiny steps, one after another. As long as you keep moving forward, or you're learning from the missteps, you're on the path, right? You're getting there. So, yeah, those are the thoughts I wanted to share with you on this Wednesday afternoon. We look forward to getting back in the morning. But hey, Thank you so much for joining. As always, feel free to invite a friend next week. Let's chew the fat together, right? And while you're at it, don't forget to visit my YouTube channel, youtube.com/keep on pushing always, because we have some amazing guests over there, man, that I think you will benefit from. Until we connect next week, you know the deal. You know what you should do. Keep on pushing.